Hello. So today I wanted to talk about powder foundations and specifically powder foundations for people with cool undertones. I'll probably need to have a separate video or maybe even a video series on figuring out your undertone and honestly just my journey with figuring out my undertone. Because for a long time I thought that I was actually very warm toned. That is not the case. But I wanted to go over this because it's been really hard for me to find a color match for my skin, even after I found out that I was cool toned. Most things run very warm on me, either orange or yellow, even if they are considered cool tone. So I have a few different powder foundations that I wanted to go over and swatch for you and let you know my overall review of kind of their color range and then also their actual formula. So let me go ahead and bring those out. All right, so these are all of my powder foundations, except I do have one that's it's in a baggie. It's a Bare Minerals foundation as well that I took out because I really just wanted the packaging. But I'll swatch that one too because that one was actually really surprising. And then I also have my Bobbi Brown color corrector in light bisque. Just as a kind of once I have all of these swatched, I can compare it to this for you because I think one, this is kind of an easy thing to find in store to swatch. And this is also my um, concealer, or really my under eye concealer. I don't really use it anywhere else, but this is just sort of there as a comparison to all these other colors. All right, so you know what? Let's start. I'm going to start with sort of the beginning. I've been using Bareminerals for a really long time, but I was always matched to their, I think it was medium beige, and that always looked orange on me. So I didn't use it very often. Really, just when I was having issues with like a lot of redness in my skin, then I would kind of have to use it. But otherwise, I didn't use it very much. I like the formula, but because their color range and really also the people who were matching me kept on taking me in a direction that wasn't helpful, I kind of went away from Bare Minerals for a while. And when I was trying to find other foundations that I could use, when I finally gave up on BB creams and liquid foundations, but none of which ever worked. I don't have any useful information with that kind of stuff. They all suck for me. Um, but I decided to look at Mineral Fusion. I think a long time ago, my mom had gotten me their setting powder, which is like fine. And I would really just use it for almost like blotting my oily skin just to keep my skin from being super oily. It's fine. There's nothing particularly special about it. It's just, regular setting powder. I don't even know if it really shows up. Or I guess it shows up a little bit. Now this will like totally rub into my skin and you can't really see it. I do feel like it's a little bit powdery, but good for someone who has really oily skin who's really just using a powder to soak that up. But I always liked this. This was okay. I didn't have any issues with it. So I figured I'd pick up Mineral Fusion. I did pick it up in Cool 1 and Cool 2 because I could never figure out from the pictures how they were different, and it's probably because they're not very different. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell a difference in the pan color from just looking at them next to each other. So this one is Cool 1, this one is Cool 2. And again, I don't know if the camera's actually going to pick up any color difference. And even just looking at them, there really isn't much of a difference. I think Cool 1 is a little bit lighter and it's a little bit more pink. It has that sort of fair pink color to it that a lot of color ranges have. And then Cool 2, honestly, to me in the pan, it doesn't look pink at all. I assume that there's some pink in there, but it definitely has a little bit of a like an orange tinge to it. but they really are very similar in terms of their overall look in hand. But let's swatch because I do feel like these look a bit different when you swatch them. These unfortunately are very powdery though. So this is Cool One. And this one is Cool Two. Actually, let me get a better, a bit more for Cool One. Now, the good and bad thing about these is they really do blend into the skin well, so they don't swatch very good. And that's going to be true for, I think, all of these. But it's funny, on my skin, these actually look very similar. Um, yeah, they're pretty much indistinguishable. And it's kind of hard to tell because these have a little bit of a different amount on the swatch, but overall, they're very hard to tell apart. I do remember when wearing these, though, that the Cool One was a bit, it is a bit lighter and it looked a little bit ghostly on my face, whereas Cool Two didn't have that overly white look to it. But I do remember it looking a little bit on the yellow or orange side on me, which is typical. I don't think there's anything wrong with the product itself, but I don't find that either one of these really run cool, or at least not on me. They're not quite the right color, but they're not bad. Like I could still wear these, but I think I can wear these mostly because I just made a mess. Well, but I think I can wear these mostly because they really do blend into the skin very well. They don't give you a lot of pigment or a lot of coverage, which I guess it's its own pro and con. Because if you're really wearing this as a foundation and you want some coverage, this probably isn't going to work for you. I think this brand in general is much more of a very light, like minimal coverage kind of thing. But it can look very pretty. I personally think it's a little bit powdery for my tastes, but I think that might be more of a preferential thing as opposed to it really looking powdery in a bad way. I do like not a glowy finish, but I just want something that looks natural. I don't really like something that's very powdery and dry looking. Mostly because I would do that a lot to myself when I was younger because I was very oily, very, very, very oily when I was younger. So I would kind of over powder my face sometimes. But anyway, yeah, these are fine. They're not for me, and the colors don't really work. And actually, before I go to MAC, who would this be good for? I don't know. I almost think of them as like the BB cream of, or not even BB cream, but like, really like tinted lotion, like something that's barely giving you any tint, but it's giving you like something. That's kind of what these do. I don't know. I can't really think of an instance where these would be useful over other things that I have or have tried. So moving on to Mac Studio Fix. So I think someone gave this to me. And by the way, this is totally the wrong color. This is C2, which is, I believe that there's a C1. So this might be like, it's not the second lightest color in the range, but it's pretty darn light. And it's kind of on the yellow side of things. Actually, let me compare with Cool One from Mineral Fusion. I think you'll be able to see the difference from these two. Yeah. You see how this one from MAC leans? It might not even be yellow, honestly. I think this one actually leans a little bit olive. This actually, I think, works well with my olive undertone. It needs to be more pink to actually work, and it needs to not be as light, but this is an interesting color. Because I really think that this is more of like a green undertone. This has more of an oliveness to it than I'm used to seeing in any sort of foundation range. So I thought that was pretty cool. I appreciate that about it. Like I said, it's really, really light on me. And I think that matters in particular with this one because unlike Mineral Fusion, this one is high coverage, or can be high coverage. For a powder foundation, it's high coverage. But hopefully you can see there, it's like, it doesn't have any pink in it really, or it has very little pink. And my skin will eat up the pink. But it has a lot more of this like greenish yellow to it. And you know, it's funny, I can actually get away with this as long as I don't try to put a lot of coverage on. I can actually get away with this. It is light, so I do look like a little bit on the ghostly side, but there's something about the undertones in this that work as long as I don't build it up too much. It's very interesting. Now, as far as the formula, I like it and I dislike it. It's a good formula, but it's definitely something that's going to leave you with a matte finish, which isn't what I like. But man, does it give you a really pretty matte finish. Like, it's nice. It looks nice. If that's the finish you're going for, like if the finish that it gives you is kind of what you're going for, it's really good at it. It's really good at giving you a very lovely matte finish. It doesn't look chalky. It doesn't look bad. It just looks matte. And it really blends into the skin well for as much coverage as it gives you. And I say that having used something that I know isn't the right color for me. And I did actually go to a MAC store and match myself. I'm pretty sure it was in W25 or in W20. That ended up being a really good match for me. And the only reason I haven't picked up that one is because I just don't like this finish. It's just not my thing. It does feel like a little bit dry on my skin. I feel like these two dry me out more, but this does have a little bit of a dry feel to the skin. So be aware of that. But overall, I think it's a good formula. I also do think that it's, instead of using a brush, it's really meant to be applied with something like this, which is also just not my jam. I don't enjoy things that need to be applied with sponges. Just not my thing. These, on the other hand, I think you can kind of apply them more with brushes. If you try to use a sponge like this, it does this, like it breaks apart and gets powdery and stuff, and it doesn't work very well. So I think that this is really a really, really good formula if you like a more matte finish. And also their color range is really extensive. It's really confusing, or in my opinion, it was confusing to figure out what color I was, but you can just go into a Mac store and just swatch away until you find the right thing. But I appreciated that. I appreciated that their color range was like extensive to me within my color range. Like I could find undertones that worked for me, but I just don't like the finish. That's the only thing. And that's probably why I prefer Bareminerals, or at least the original formula. They do have a matte formula, and I think I have used it before. It was a really long time ago. I don't think I liked it as much. It's very similar to this, except it doesn't give you that really pretty shine that Bareminerals does. And if you don't know what I mean by that, just I would say swatch it and then like buff it into your skin. It gives a really pretty effect. So I think I'm going to have a different video with like a lot of different Bareminerals colors, but for right now I'm just going to stick probably with these two. I might go into my concealer as well. So I have medium and then fairly medium, which are quite far away from each other in terms of like tone. Like this is quite dark compared to this one. And I'm really in the middle of these two kind of. Most of the time I just use medium, but sometimes if I want heavier coverage, I kind of need to compensate with a little bit of fairly medium. But let me swatch these for you. See, and Bareminerals really doesn't swatch well. It's kind of messy. Okay, so this is medium. Getting this everywhere. And then this one is fairly medium. And you see how much lighter this is than medium? But can you also see on here like how pink they are compared to the other ones? Like especially medium. Fairly medium is actually pretty light on my skin. It mostly just looks white. And I think fairly medium kind of just looks like these two right here. But medium is definitely the most pink, which I like. I like that. I think that looks good on my skin. Not so much my forearm. My forearm tends to be less pink than the rest of my body and a little bit more like more of a warm, neutral warm undertone. So it's good for swatching on because it'll show like things won't totally blend into it that work on my face. But you see how the Bare Mineral ones, or at the very least the medium one, is way more pink than the others, and also doesn't have much of an orangey undertone, if any, whereas all the other ones tend to have like some yellow or orange in their undertone. Medium is very much pink, and I would even say like Fairly Medium is also very pink. It's very white. It's very white and pink on my skin. Let's see, and you know what? Just for swatching everything. So this is through concealer. I don't really think that this is necessary, but it's nice to have. It's kind of it's really like these two. It's like their foundation, but it has a little bit more pigment to it. So it's good for like covering up stuff. But it looks a little bit more like Fairly Medium than Medium. It definitely has that like white undertone to it. But unlike Fairly Medium, this has even less yellow to it. I think the concealer really is a lot like Medium, except for it's lighter. And also, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell this in the footage. I don't think this is going to pick up. But the Bare Minerals ones, all three of these have a sheen to them, as opposed to being matte and powdery like all of these. These have, it's just a very different finish. They look very, I mean, if I buffed them in, they would look very skin-like, but even swatched like this, they're not sitting on top of my skin and being powdery and flaky. They're kind of melding with it. Like, I don't know if you can tell like the sheen of my skin when it's going back and forth in the lights, but the Bare Minerals will actually pick up that sheen, whereas the other ones are just, they're just matte on my skin. They don't pick up any sheen. But yeah, that's the main reason I like the Bare Minerals, is it just looks very, very natural on if you get one with the right undertones for you. I remember watching the QVC videos on these, and I think a lot of the times they'll say something uh, like you know if your shade is sold out, you can just get something near it, and that Bare Minerals is very like flexible with the shades. And I totally disagree with that. I always thought that that was weird. So I do have this one over here. So this is Bare Minerals Light Beige. The number it's associated with it is 9. And I want to swatch this one for you because you know how I said that, oh, this is getting everywhere. You know how I said how Medium and Fairly Medium are like far apart from each other tonally? Like Medium is a lot darker than Fairly Medium. This is the color that's in between. And I was really disappointed when I got this because look how orange that is. Like, I mean, the Bare Minerals formula kind of melts into my skin, but do you see how orange that is compared to the other 3 Bare Minerals? Now, it looks fine on my forearm, or actually, no, on my forearm, it still looks orange. My forearm can take some of the yellow, but not so much the orange, but there's no pinkness to it. Or at the very least, whatever pinkness is in it, my arm just eats up. So, like, yes, tonally it is between these two. It's kind of like if you mix these two together, you would get something that's this depth of color, but it's a lot more warm. And this is supposed to be in their cool range, and I really disagree with that. So that was definitely a waste of money for me. And I don't think that that's actually cool toned at all. But like I said, overall, I really like the Bare Minerals formula. Okay, this is just going to stay a mess. But I really like the Bare Minerals formula. It looks really natural on my skin. It doesn't look powdery, and it's very comfortable to wear. And I think that's one of the big things with me and makeup. I didn't wear makeup for a really long time. There's lots of reasons for that. But one of the reasons is I don't like it when I can feel makeup on my skin. I don't have anything against these formulas. They're fine. for what they are, but I can feel them on my skin. And I don't like that. I don't like it when I can feel makeup on my skin. And Bare Minerals, I can't feel it on my skin. Now, I've never tried to go medium to full coverage with this. I don't have the patience for that. It would take a really long time to build up to it. But I've built up my foundation, my Bare Minerals foundation, a few times, and I've never really been able to feel it on my skin. So it's a really good formula. I know some people really don't like it, and some people are actually allergic to one of the ingredients in this. I think it's the bismuth. I forget what the whole chemical name for it is. But it's one of those things that you're either allergic to or not. I really like this, and I'm happy I have it. And so I guess this is sort of a declutter, because part of the reason that I'm doing this video is one of my friends is going to take these. I'm going to get these out of my collection because I never use these. They've just been sitting around. So I'm happy that someone is going to take them. And I'm also really happy that I finally found the Bare Minerals colors that work for me, because I really like this formula, and the color, and particularly the medium color, works for me really well. And actually, before I forget, I do want to compare this. This is my concealer color, and I'm just going to just put this down right here so you can see. And I think you'll be able to see maybe how well this matches to medium. I mean, it's a lot more of like opaque of a color because it's a concealer, but you can see that this is like the Bobbi Brown is a great match for me. And of all of these things that I have swatched on my arm, the Bare Minerals medium is the closest to it. So it's kind of nice to have that confirmation. These two different products that I kind of found separately, that they're very similar. I do think that the Bare Minerals has a little bit more like orange in it than the Bobbi Brown, but it's kind of undetectable once I buff it into my skin. And it's way better than everything else on my arm and everything else I've ever tried. So I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Hope that if you were looking at any of these colors, or if you have cool toned skin, or if you are even just interested in the formulas of these three brands, I hope this gave you some useful information. If you have any questions on these, please feel free to ask me. I know it can be really annoying to have to like try out different brands. So let me know if you have any questions, if you're trying to like rule out one of these. Happy to answer them. But anyway, thank you so much if you stuck around to the end of this. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.